That was a very quick video covering a lot of the routes of administration. We have some questions which I'm going to go over now that was pre-submitted prior to this webinar, and I'd like to answer any questions you might have. And I should also point out, please feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom. I know that this is a subject that a lot of people have, not only just questions, but it's things that as you dive into this, you may need some clarification. Let's start with the best routes of best methods and routes for sleeping. The route of administration is something that you should feel comfortable with. This should be something that you yourself like to use. Now, I do have to tell you, when you're looking at sleep, and by the way, on our YouTube channel, we do have sleep videos. So there's videos on not only what products to use and how to use products with Dr. Greg Holt, but also on sleep itself, where we don't talk about cannabis, but we talk about the process of sleeping and what's best for you. You might want to check those out. But short of that, let's talk about the routes, the best routes in sleeping. Myrcene is really the key. It really does a lot to help people sleep. And also, you want to take a look at something like linalool. Linalool is a terpene that's much like lavender, and it's very relaxing. Terpinolene, drominolol, and boronol are also terpenes to look for in your cannabis product that will help you sleep. But myrcene is found in almost every product that's out there. And again, linalool is also a very popular product. The routes of administration really depend on what's comfortable for you. What I'm going to probably talk about now is how do you sleep at night. I tend to use an edible. To be candid with you, I use either a brownie or I use a chocolate. Usually about an hour before I decide I want to go to sleep, I take it. And by the time I'm ready to go to sleep, it's making me sleepy, and I do sleep through the night. And it's very comfortable. They have a 10-hour duration when you're using edibles, and that's really, really important. If you use something like a tincture, use something like a topical, you probably will get 4 hours of relief, or in other words, a duration of 4 hours or 6 hours or 2 hours. You'll wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and you have a problem sleeping again. Using that edible is really, really important. This is where you get that 4 to 10 hours of sleep. And again, depends on what you like, but be very careful. It'll take you 15 minutes to 2 hours for that edible to work. And now, if you take too many of them, you'll definitely go to sleep, and you'll sleep a little bit longer than you normally do. You're not going to die, that's for sure. That's one of the things about cannabis. It's very safe, but it will put you in the couch. It will right back to you and put you there. So my recommendation is check out our video on sleep. Pick up a product that has myrcene in it. Pay attention to using like an edible about an hour before bed. Brownies, gummies. Let's jump into the next question. Do you build a tolerance to marijuana? Well, there's a lot of controversy on that, and I think the answer is I think you get comfortable with using it. I'm not sure that you build a tolerance to it, and the reason for that is because you can stop using cannabis at any point in time. And by the way, one of the things that you do when you're using cannabis is I recommend every 4 to 6 weeks, just take a holiday. Stop using the product for anywhere between 1 to 4 days. What that does is it lets your body reset by not introducing new cannabis products into your body. What it's doing is it's causing your body to then produce the endocannabinoids it needs. Your body can get lazy. So what you want to do is you want to wake it up, have it start going to work, and do the job that's really there. But again, because you're, like in my particular case, I'm a senior citizen, I need to add some cannabis because my body's not producing the amount of endocannabinoids I need to really enjoy it, to really address the condition I have, which is pain and inflammation in my neck. The answer is yes, you can. I guess there's a lot of discussions about that. I personally believe a lot of that comes from the fact that people get used to using cannabis. People have used it for 10 or 12 years without taking a holiday. Your body can build up a tolerance to it. But again, by taking that holiday, taking that break, by taking anywhere from 1 to 4 days off, it'll help quite a bit. Now, I did say 1 to 4 days because in my case, with herniated discs, I go for about a day, maybe a day and a half. And then my neck taps my shoulder and says, if you don't do something pretty quick, I'm going to let you know I'm here. So pay attention to the fact that you can tolerate it to a certain point. I'm not addicted to cannabis. I can stop at any point in time. There's no negative side effects physically or mentally to me not stopping use of cannabis. I should say that with tongue in cheek, because if I stop using medical cannabis, the pain in my neck goes instantly from a 1 to about a 7 or an 8. And what I'm addicted to is getting rid of the pain. And I have not found anything better for getting rid of pain than cannabis. I haven't found any pharma drug. I haven't found any herbal remedies. Cannabis has been literally the best remedy for me with the minimum amount of effect. So I would say really take a look at it. Now, there's going to be people that want to debate me on this area of tolerance. I do have to tell you that if you're following the holidays, you're taking the breaks and using the products correctly, you will probably not have to worry about an addiction or using too much cannabis. But you need to follow the regime of taking the breaks. And a lot of times that's a function of just not using it properly. Let's jump into the next question, which is Delta 8 gummies have become popular and can be purchased online. And you can purchase them in most stores now. THC comes from hemp. THC comes from it. Well, THC is found in hemp. It's not just comes from it. It also is in cannabis as well. Can you address the difference between Delta 8 and Delta 9? And the answer is yes, I can. Delta 8 and Delta 9 are both cannabinoids. Delta 9 is found in much higher concentrations than Delta 8 in both the cannabis and in the hemp plant. And if you look at the little graphic that's here, you'll see that there's a little circle that shows you there's basically a link in the molecular chain that's different. Now, when that link is there, Delta 9 is much more potent. When it is not there, or it's in a different position, let me put it to you that way, it makes it 50% less psychoactive. It also makes it about 50% less effective. The other thing about Delta 9 that you should know is that because it's not found in large quantities, it's hard to produce Delta 8 by itself. So when you go into a shop and you see Delta 8, there's a couple of things you got to be careful of. First of all, in order to produce a bottle of Delta 8 in a 350 milliliter bottle of the Delta 8, it takes 8 hemp plants. Now, 8 hemp plants are going to cost you somewhere between $120 to $180. And you look at that Delta 8 product, it's going to cost you like $30. That means that there's something wrong with the formula here, AKA you're not getting that higher concentration of Delta 8. In other words, they're not using as much of the product. Candidly, what they typically do with Delta 8 products in a lot of these head shops is they go out and they throw an isolate in there. And the isolate doesn't have any terpenes in it. And it just basically is something that drives up the Delta 8 concentration, but it doesn't necessarily help the medicinal value of it. It's kind of like a synthetic type of thing. So I prefer to not use Delta 8. I prefer to stay away from it, mainly because of the way it's manufactured. And also, when you go to a lot of these stores that are hemp shops, they don't necessarily have an effective certificate of analysis. It'll tell you the cannabinoids in the product, but it won't tell you the terpenes. It won't tell you any of the won't tell you the tests that they've done for negative things like mold, pesticides, and that type of thing. It's a very limited COA, and I just tend to stay away from products. I just don't know what's in it. So there is a difference. That molecular difference does cause the product to be less effective. It was a big rage to use Delta 8 products because they found out that people potentially thought they could get high using it. That's kind of gone away a little bit because people realize they can now buy they can buy now THCA products. And THCA is a product that once heated turns into THC. And again, these hemp stores are selling very high concentrations of THCA product. Same warning, be careful that they're not isolates, that it's very hard to produce a product that has 50% THCA, which is what I've seen in some of these shops, without having it be an isolate. And again, an isolate is something to be very, very careful of because it doesn't have the same medicinal value of other folks. But I do have to tell you, some of these Delta 8, some of these THCA products that you buy at these hemp stores, I've tried some, and one of them had 50% THCA. That'll put you on the couch, no question about it. I just stay away from those as well. I am not a big fan of products that have been treated or tampered with. I like the natural products. That's why I stick to things like RSO. If you're looking for a high concentration product that will get you high, that'll have great medicinal value, stick to RSO products. They work the best. I hope that answers that particular question. Next question is it safe to combine routes of administration, to be more specific, target different types of treatment? The answer is absolutely. My regime is comprised of when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I grab a vape pen. The reason I grab a vape pen is because I can wake up in the morning and having a pain level of between a 7 or an 8. And by grabbing that vape pen, taking literally a couple of hits off that vape pen, within a minute or two, my pain level will go from a 7 or an 8 down to a 1. Now, what I do is I then take sublingual drops. They'll take me 15, 20 minutes to work. And then what happens with those sublingual drops, they'll last between 4 to 6 hours, which takes me into the early afternoon to do something that's there. So by mixing your routes of administration, your sublingual drops, your vapes, it'll help you be able to start that onset, get rid of the pain immediately, be able to run through the morning or the afternoon that's there. And then again, as I mentioned in the evening, using a edible just prior to sleep can help you get some sleep as well. So the answer is yes, mixing and matching different routes of administration are really, really important. have it take a look at what works for you. I know a lot of people use vaporizers, for example, because they can home right in on that temperature, which gives them the terpenes that they need. In my particular case, I need beta caryophyllene, I need myrcene, and what I'm looking at is about a 295-degree temperature setting on my vape pen or on my dryer vaporizer. And that's why I tend to use them. When I don't use something that sets the temperature, I find it just doesn't work for me. Isn't effective because it's that terpene profile that gives me the, let's just say, it gives me the relief that I'm looking for. But again, it all has to do with the onset time, the duration time that you're looking for, also how easy it is to take. That's why a lot of people look at sprays because they're very easy to carry around and use, and they work almost immediately. And also, remember, by being able to use a THC and CBD combined product, you have that entourage effect. Let's jump into the next question, which is with Rick Simpson oil, RSO, does it matter if the base is THC or CBD flower? Well, that's a really good question. First of all, marijuana is one type of cannabis plant. Cannabis has two types of plant. One is called a hemp plant, and one is called a marijuana plant. The hemp plant is kind of tall and skinny and stringy, looks like a little tree. Marijuana plant is kind of short and bushy, hence why they call it weed. They're both cannabis. Hemp plants don't have the higher concentrations of the cannabinoids and terpenes as marijuana. Marijuana is much better at it. Most of the RSO products that are made from marijuana-based products. And so what you'll find is RSO is normally a marijuana-based product. I haven't seen too many CBD-based hemp products, although I have seen one of them. Most of them are marijuana-based products. So it's not a matter of the actual flower itself as much as being able to take a look at the terpene profile, and the terpene profile is much better with the marijuana-based product, hence why people use those. Now, I do have to tell you that there's RSO and what they call FSO, full spectrum oil. What's the difference? Candidly, the manufacturing process is the same. The difference is the cutting agent that they use in FSO. These days, we're using an FSO product that's based on like MCT oil, something along those lines, and other products in that particular area that are much, let's just say, much more organic, much safer, and much better to use than the original products that Rick Simpson was using. Because when he made the product, he made it 20 years ago. So he didn't have the availability of the different cutting agents that are out there. I tend to use FSO products all the time. I love them. As you notice, we had an example of a COA of a RSO product, and I use that product. I use it very effectively because in my age, I need to get the maximum benefit out of it to help with my knees, to help with my back, to help with my inflammation, and to help with my pain. But I have to tell you, I do take it as a capsule, and I tend to take it in the evenings where, again, it can help me go through the night and get the relief that I need. Let's jump on to the next question that's there. What is the best strain or method, route, et cetera, for chronic and intense pain? I have RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and my last surgery was in my cervical spine. Man, you're preaching to the choir here. I have 7 herniated discs in my neck and 2 in my back, not to mention a couple knee replacements. So pain is part of the process as you get old. I do have to tell you that, again, the route of administration depends on what you'll use. Some people like to smoke. Some people don't like to smoke. Some people are much more comfortable with vaping than rolling a joint. I do have friends of mine who the therapeutic value of rolling a joint, just that rolling gives them therapeutic value, which I understand. But I still don't like joints as a way of going. My recommendation is to go with first of all, for intense pain, pay attention to topicals because they'll help quite a bit, and especially the transdermals. The transdermals basically absorb into your bloodstream, and so it becomes a lot more effective way of using that topical that's out there. Although most of them out there work very well. That'll help with short term. Medium term, sublingual drops work very, very well. I tend to use those. And then I pay attention to carrying a vape pen if you need immediate relief, and or again in the evenings, I would use that oral product, that gummy or that chocolate or whatever, to being able to get to bed. Now with RA, rheumatoid arthritis, a product that has a higher amount of CBD to THC is what I recommend. I have a patient again from the Villages that literally her hands were closed from arthritis. She had not been able to open her hands in over a year. She was basically homebound. She was embarrassed. She couldn't go out and eat. She had trouble changing. She couldn't change the remote control on the TV. And so we put her on an RA routine. 3 weeks later, her hand began to open up. A month and a half later, she was able to use her hands. She's now knitting. She's now playing golf. She was able to get a lot of the relief that's there. She still has some pain. I can't say the pain level went down to 0, but it's down to a 1 or a 2. as opposed to a 7 or an 8. And more importantly, she has the flexibility in her hands. And I would suggest using a CBD product that's let's say a 4-to-1 or a 9-to-1 CBD product that'll help quite a bit with RA. But make sure that one is there. That one is your THC. You need to be able to use that. Start by using a 1-to-1 because building up that tolerance, or excuse me, building up that inside your body, building up your CBD, the amount of CBD that you have in your system will help quite a bit, help your receptors be able to address the issues related to RA that's out there. And I haven't had any surgeries on my spine because basically it was in my case the with 7 herniated discs. I would say it's inoperable, but the outcome is of not having a being handicapped is less than 10%. So I passed on that. But I do have to tell you that it'll help you with your surgeries. When I had my knee operation, I had a left knee replacement. I actually worked with the doctors at Jewett Orthopedic. I talked to them about not using pharma drugs if possible. Now in the hospital, I was operated on Monday. Monday and Tuesday, I had to use pharma drugs. I stopped using them Tuesday night. Wednesday, on my checkout day, I basically passed on the pain medication. Needless to say, when I got out of the hospital at noon, I was in pain. We went into the garage. I took some tea. So I had some tincture drops. I had a vape pen. I did both of those. Literally, by the time we hit the street, my pain level went from a 7 and 8 down to a 1. And I stayed that way the whole time I was working with. Cannabis was a very effective way of handling my knee surgery. I think we'll have, and I'm going to just project that could also work for the cervical spine issue because it's pain and it has to do with the spine, it has to do with the bone structure. But I would use a combination of vape pen, tincture drops, and also edibles to be able to address that and build a regime during the day that's there. In a couple of weeks, we have a dosing webinar. We'll talk about using products at various times. In fact, I think it's next week. Please join us for that. We're going to talk a little bit about how to set up a routine that'll help you address your particular condition. What's the best route of administration? I hope that helps a little bit on that. Last question is, I would like to learn more about batter, resin, and dabbing. That is an excellent question. I didn't dive too much into it in this particular webinar because I'm going to actually do a whole what I call a snippet. I'm going to do about a 10-minute segment on concentrates. It'll be done within the next month or so, and you'll be able to we'll dive right down into the concentrates area because this is a very fascinating area to me. I absolutely love rosins and resin. The reason for that is because they're very natural processes to the way that they're made. In the case of rosins, they use pressure and extraction to be able to pull out the products, cannabis products. In resin, they're actually using a hydrocarbon extraction, and in certain cases, they actually do a process where they use an ice bath to be able to separate the cannabinoids from the leaf itself. But both of them have full spectrum, which I just love. Batter is a good product as well because what they do is they make it in literally batter, and it's a play on the word butter. It's very similar to a smooth butter that's out there. Very high in THCA, and THCA has a lot of really, really good properties to it, especially for pain, especially for things like MS, Alzheimer's, neuropathy, those kind of areas. It really helps quite a bit. But those are a couple of things that are there. Now, dabbing is the capability to be able to take a vape pen, turn it around, and be able to put it right on the top of that particular product and just basically inhale. And it basically causes the product to burn, gives you the vape there. And by the way, it's very similar to a vape pen. I prefer to do it the other way around. I prefer to take the vape pen, drop the batter inside, and just smoke it like I would a vape pen. You can use it either way. One is more of a convenience issue that's really out there. But concentrates come in a lot of different forms. The reason they make the forms is because they have a different way of burning. They have a different way of being able to deliver products. For example, diamonds give you a lot of THCA, and THCA is very helpful to help again with pain. Be aware that the impact of these is almost immediately. They'll last anywhere between 1 to 6 hours. What strains are best for anxiety and for pain? Well, we talked about pain, which really you want to take a look at. It's not a matter of the strain. I think I want to have people understand the medical value of cannabis comes from the terpenes. So if you pay attention to the terpenes that help a lot with pain, which is your myrcene, your beta caryophyllene, and your linolols, they'll help quite a bit with those. And I recommend that those terpenes. Most strains contain those. Check the COA to find out if it is in the product that you're looking for. Now, for anxiety, what you want to do is you want to basically relax. And that's where things like myrcene come into play. because it's really, really effective. Things like linalool, and interestingly enough, beta-caryophyllene works as well, just as well. So what's working for pain is also working for anxiety, and that works quite a bit. And so really, it's a matter of making sure that the terpene profile is in the product that's there. I can't tell you the number of times I've met people, I've talked to them. They've said, I've used medical cannabis. It really doesn't work. I asked them what they're taking. We took a look at it and found out the terpene profile of that product does not match the condition that they're trying to address. When we make that recommendation, they come back to me a week or two later and say, my heavens, what a difference. It works. I feel much better. And it really is important to be able to match those terpenes. And this goes back to our next question as well. Again, they're asking for what are the best strains for pain for the hip. Same thing. Pay attention to the strains that have myrcene, linalool, beta-caryophyllene in there, or caryophyllene is in there. Those will work very well. That's really out there. Again, there are a whole bunch of strains. There's a lot of strains being developed. I get a kick out of these articles that I read that say the best strains for. In reality, when you take a look at the best strains for a particular condition, it really breaks down to they have this terpene profile that matches and works with that particular condition. And that's the same thing that goes with this. That pay attention to myrcene, linalool, beta-caryophyllene. It'll help with your pain. It'll help with your hips that are out there. One of my best friends just had a hip operation. We put him on a regime of a vape pen in the morning, tincture drops, and in the afternoons we actually have goes back to tincture drops, and then actually I got him into brownies for sleeping at night, and it's working very, very well. The other question is, how do terpenes contribute to marijuana potency? Well, it's interesting in that our body has what they call receptors, and those receptors are basically do different things in our body. One of them helps with pain. One of them helps with your digesting food. One of them helps with your neuropathy. There's a lot of different receptors that have a lot of different functions. One of the things that cannabis does is it basically works with those receptors and provides medical value to them. Medical value meaning if you need, for example, if you have anxiety or if you have pain, what you're really looking for is you're looking for a route of administration and a product type that really contributes to being able to address that particular receptor. Now, cannabinoids, think of cannabinoids like Legos. They all have different shapes and different sizes. Think of receptors like Legos. They have different sizes and different shapes. So by being able to mix the cannabinoid to that receptor is open to that particular cannabinoid. It then connects and opens up that particular receptor to be able to deposit the terpenes and the flavonoids into that receptor or have it match and have it work together so that they can actually get the medical value that's really out there. So think of the cannabinoid like a Lego that opens up the receptor. Think of the terpenes as the medical value that puts in there. And the same thing with flavonoids. And that's really what will help you. That's really out there. It's a pretty simple process, but it's one that took a long time for us to figure out and to take a look at. Also, the potency has a lot to do with cannabis. The terpenes aren't necessarily high in concentration, meaning you look at a product that has 2% or 5% or 7%, even if you have 7% terpene profile, that's a high concentration. Typically, it's between 2 and 4%, but they are very concentrated. A little bit of terpenes goes a long way. So by just having, let's say, a 2% myrcene terp profile or a 5% terpene profile, myrcene profile will be very, very helpful to being able to address, again, that anxiety, that pain. And again, pay attention to the terpenes. Very, very important to address that particular condition. And remember that cannabis has what they call a neuroprotectant capability. It actually coats the receptors. And so by coating the receptors, it actually works, covers them, opens them up for the terpenes and flavonoids and being able to move from there. It's a very simplistic explanation. Scientifically, there's a lot more that goes into it, but I'm trying to keep it very simple so people can understand the basics. First of all, I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. This is I think, a very important webinar. Routes of administration, really the key, one of the keys. When you know your dosing, your dosing profile, you know what your tolerance is to THC, you can then start adding more CBD to it. And that really opens up the whole world of cannabis to you, because once you know that, then you know the terpene profiles and you'll be able to go from there. For example, my wife is very tolerant, and she THC puts her on her back. For me, I'm very tolerant of it. So I have to be very careful. She uses like literally a 20-to-1 product to help to address her anxiety and her stress, where I'm using a product that's more like a 1-to-4 because of the pain level that I have. So it really depends on the concentrations that you're using. I do want to thank everybody for joining us. I know that next week we're going to be addressing how to craft an individualized plan. This is very, very important. This drops into dosing and what exact products you really want to use. We're going to dive down into that. And I really want to have you join us for that. If you're around tomorrow at the Villages, please join us. We're talking about understanding cannabis as medicine, and I'll be there with Amy Green. Thank you very much for joining us. Our goal is, like anything, is to help you get your life back. And we'd like to have you join us either at the Villages tomorrow or next week for our webinar.